Welcome to the Unsecurity Podcast. Each week, Evan and Brad give an inside look at current information security news, breaches, best practices, and other things you should know to improve your information security. Here are your hosts, FRSecure's Evan Francine and Brad Nye.
Hey, Unsecurity Podcast listeners. This is episode 62, and the date is January 14th, not the 13th. I'm Brad Nye, your host for today's show. Joining me in studio is Ryan Cloutier.
We'll get it right.
Come on, man.
Close enough.
At this point, it's just painful.
Cloutier?
Cloutier.
See? Oh, well, I was close. And on phone is Evan Francine. Hi, Evan.
Yeah. Hi. Ryan, do you have a nickname?
Yes, but in order to keep our rating, I will keep that confidential.
There you go. So,
well, because I was just thinking, your initials are RC. I was going to start calling you Cola.
You know, funny enough, as a child, my nickname on the playground was RC Cola.
Cola. Does that offend you if I call you Cola?
No, I'm okay with that. You can call me whatever you want, as long as you pay me.
there you go.
I'm going to call you nice things. Like Cola. It's easier. Because people get that mixed up all the time. Cloutier, Cloutier.
I respond to, hey, that guy, Mr. Security.
Yeah.
Hey, dude. All right. Sorry I took us off track.
No, that's okay.
Hi, Brad.
Hi. So, obviously we're a day late on this, and that's partly on me, and we'll blame Ryan too. We were both under the weather yesterday. You could probably still hear it in both of our voices. So hopefully we make it the whole show without going totally Barry White on everyone, and they can still understand us.
Yeah, still a little froggy. Great state of Minnesota. Come for the weather, get sick, stay because your car won't start.
Yeah, that's coming this weekend. All right. So let's do a quick catch up. We'll go with Ryan, you first, since you're the newest here. What was your first week at SecurityStudio like?
Oh, it was great. Still finding my feet, obviously, just like with any job first week in, getting set up. But everyone here has just been so passionate and helpful, and had some great calls with some customers, some prospect opportunities. It's just really been a very exciting week. Made a lot of progress on the newest S2 iteration, which will be S2 School. So hopefully we'll have that ready for release in maybe mid-February.
Very cool.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I know you and I've had a couple of really good conversations last week, just popping in to just talk shop. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I love it. I love being back in a culture of security, and really it's the passion of the people around me that I'm finding invigorating. Evan likes to say that my passion is contagious, but I think the contagion is inside these walls.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the culture, right? I think everybody is bought in, and just, it is very contagious when you get in here and everybody's they're focused on the same mission. Everybody wants the same goal. There's not the infighting or the politics that you see at a lot of places. So Evan, you'll like this. I was talking with Oscar, our director of tech services, about you and how excited you were. And I was like, it reminded me of when Oscar started. It's like people come here from corporate jobs or these other things where they're just, banging your head against the wall, and you get here and it's like, wait, what? I'm an adult and treated as such, and people are supportive, and it's just so re-energizing. So
yeah, it's really been great, and I'm excited for the future too. And doing the podcast here, loving this. This is a lot of fun, and we'll have more news to share over the next few weeks. But this is just the beginning of some really great stuff we're going to be up to.
Very cool. So my week wrapped up a couple incidents. We had another one come in last night, right after 5. So it's always, that never stops. But I think the most fun for me is just that we're actually now getting and maturing and being able to kind of see things and working on. We've got these products, and how do we take them to the next level, and being able to spend some time really digging in and understanding what works, what doesn't work, and how can we make things better and better serve our customers. So it's very nerdy, and I get that, but I'm having a lot of fun doing that. So, and Evan is in Cancun. I'm sure tanning and enjoying the sun.
I wish, man. I think I've been doing just as much work down here lately than I do back at the office. It's been great, though. I had some great conversations with some partners last week, some SecurityStudio partners. Sounds like FRSecure is kicking butt. Been doing some writing, not enough. It's never enough. But yeah, the great thing is the atmosphere that I'm around, right? Being in warmer weather, I think it's more productive. So we're going to have to figure out some way to open an office down here.
I'm in support of that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely times. I love the winter. I love the snow, but it would be nice to be able to get away for a week. But
after January 1st, man, I'm done with it. Minnesota can stick it with the weather, man. I like it up until Christmas, but after that, I'm done.
I think I'm good through January, but then, kind of towards as February drags on, and then it's March, and there's still, feet of snow. That's where I've kind of gotten like, all right.
Yeah. You get into the summer, and then we all forget why we don't like living here in the winter.
That's why you love the seasons, right? You appreciate the other ones when it's not that season. You don't get sick of it.
Right.
Well, the cool thing is information security is a worldwide issue, right? That's one of the things we're going to talk about today.
Yep.
The whole Iran thing. But, down here in Mexico, they have security issues just like anywhere else. I was sitting at the Starbucks here. It's a place called La Isla. And I opened up my laptop and I was just curious how many hotspots there were around me. And there were like 45 hotspots around me. And some of them were still wet. Some, most of them were open. So there's security issues everywhere.
Yeah, that's not great. Wow. So, and real quick before we dive into the big topic today, I did want to mention that registration for the 2020 CISSP Mentor Program will be opening today. So you can go to our website, FRSecure.com, and register. We've got, I think 40 on-site seats available this year, and a whole bunch online. So you'll be. I
think we're limiting it. We're limiting it to 1,000, and I've already my mailbox filled up with just before the show. I got like 85 emails, so it's filling up already.
Yeah. So jump on that and don't miss out.
Yeah, register now so you get a chance to have a seat. It's going to be really great. I know I'm looking forward this year to being part of it and, working with you guys and really helping to grow some folks. And, if you're out there and you're considering taking this and maybe you don't think you're ready for a CISSP, you should sign up for it anyways. The Security Plus cert is pretty attainable for those that are just entering into the cybersecurity space, info security space. And I feel like what you're going to learn in the mentorship program is going to prepare you not just for the CISSP, but it'll give you a really good foundation block for things like Security Plus, maybe some of the GX certs. So really, really do encourage, if you have any passion for this at all, or even curiosity, it's totally worth checking out.
Absolutely. All right. So with that out of the way, switching gears, we're going to discuss a topic that is probably on a lot of people's minds, and that's the conflict between the U.S. and Iran. And what effect is this going to have on our daily information security and cybersecurity lives? So very significant events have taken place over the last few weeks, events that are going to impact the world as we know it, either politically, economically, and definitely from an information security or cybersecurity perspective. So we're going to try and stay out of politics as much as possible. That's not our focus. It's just what is the information security repercussions of what is happening. So politics and economics, we'll leave those to those experts. What we will discuss is how are these current events affecting us with respect to information security, I can't talk. We should all be concerned about how these things affect our ability to protect ourselves, our families, our workplaces, and local governments. So some background, and I'm not going to go into all the detail. It is out on evanfrancine.com, and if you click on the blog for episode 62, but it started December 27th, 2019. There was a attack on an airbase in Iraq. 29th, U.S. attacked Hezbollah positions in Iraq. Then it just escalated up through January 3rd, when the U.S. dropped drone strike, killed the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, followed by January 8th, where Iran fired ballistic missiles, and then the 11th, where we see video of Iranian missile published by the New York Times, video showing the missile hitting a consumer flight and killing everyone on board. So not a lot of violence, not a lot of good stuff out of there. So back to the discussion. I'd like for us to share opinions, hear opinions of our listeners this week. And as Evan so eloquently put it, we all know what they say about opinions. So starting with that, Evan, what do you think this means for information security?
Well, I think, there's a lot of being written about this. The cyber warfare. I think it's a great opportunity for people that are fearmongers and out there to make a buck. It's a great opportunity for them. Unfortunately, we've been to think that this is something new, cyber warfare between the United States and Iran. I mean, that stuff has been happening for years. I don't expect a significant increase because the capabilities of Iran are so less than, adversaries like the United States and Israel. Then you kind of sprinkle in China and Russia and the UK, and it's a complicated thing. I think what I'm trying to figure out is what this actually means to me. I'm a small business owner. I know many of our listeners are small business owners, or we consult small business owners. What does it mean for them? Chances are they're not going to be direct targets of what happens between the United States and Iran. I think where I'd be more concerned is, collateral damage, where, I'm low-hanging fruit. I happen to be, something that's easy to compromise and deface my website or do something like that. And I'm also concerned. So I'm concerned, one, about, am I covering the basics, the fundamentals of information security, to not make myself collateral damage, for one. And number two, I'd be concerned about the supply chain. I'd be concerned about the people that I do business with and the access that I'm giving them into my network. If they get compromised, it's potentially a simple pivot into my network and doing things. So for me, this whole conflict honestly doesn't change anything. For me, it just maybe makes it a little higher priority, but I'm not a government installation. I don't run a power grid. I'm probably not a direct target, so I'm not overly freaking out about those things.
Well, it's interesting you bring those points up, Evan. I think the impact that most small businesses are going to feel immediately, you're going to see in the news this morning. So Microsoft is putting out probably the most important patch they've ever released ever today. So for those of you that have any Windows anything, please get that patch and apply it. It comes with a stern and urgent warning from insert any intelligence agency and alphabet soup that you can think of from the U.S. government. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think that we as small business owners and as local government institutions that maybe aren't that direct target, I think they're going to have to get quicker at responding to patches so that they're not part of the collateral damage. I think we're going to see some of those supply chain considerations. Small businesses, especially K-12 schools, have already been used as pivot points for larger nation state attacks. I can point to an example in North Dakota where a K-12 school was compromised by some North Korean bad actors in an attempt to gain access to the nuclear defense system. So I think we're still going to see things like that happen. The other thing is if a small business owner is doing business with the Department of Defense, I think those individuals are going to be at an increased risk for either a direct attack or just part of that collateral damage as they're trying to cause disruption in the supply chain.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think those subcontractors or subcontractors, the manufacturers, and we've worked with a bunch, and I think for them, a lot of times security is not very high on their priority list at all, right? They're like, what do we have? We just make this whatever.
Right. Yeah, well, you hear that all the time in multiple verticals, right? Well, we don't have anything that they want. We're not a bank. We're not a hospital. Right. And, we all know that they'll attack a small business to get the person at that small business compromise their personal account so that their brother-in-law, who does work for the military or does work for one of those larger institutions, and I think that's what the small businesses and just general average consumer needs to become more aware of is it's not always that you're the target. You may be adjacent to the target, and the bad actors are simply going through you to get to their final destination.
Yeah, you're just the means of them getting to what they want.
Absolutely.
You're just being used. Yeah. I think, and to go on with Evan said, I think for the most part for individuals, there's probably not a huge amount that's going to change. Right. I would agree with that. We just need to be more cognizant of what's going on. And there's not really a whole lot we can do.
No. And thankfully there are. Oh, go ahead, Evan.
At some point, too, people, small business, K-12, local government, people that traditionally have been reactionary to these things, at some point, you need to flip the script on that and stop being reactionary. Get fundamental security practices in place. I agree completely with what Ryan said on there's a big, big patch coming out. Did you know that? Are you applying patches? Are you doing vulnerability scanning, vulnerability management? Are you doing these fundamental basic things? That way, when you hear something about Iran or the next conflict we have with whoever, it's just not as earth-shattering as, like, oh crap, I have 3389 open, or I don't even know that I have 3389 open, or whatever. And taking care of vendor risk management, they say 62% of all breaches come directly or indirectly through the supply chain, through your vendors or through your third parties. So get those things squared away. Now is as good a time as any. And if you're struggling with budget, use the Iran conflict as, hey, the CEOs have read this. The CEOs, the boards, they know that these things are happening. Use this as an opportunity to get some money.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're vertical. So to Evan's point about taking this to the board, if you are in that supply chain manufacturing, this is a great time to do that. If you're that, local government, critical infrastructure, right? That's going to be your angle. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we don't think about that local government being part of that critical infrastructure. We tend to think of the large power plants. We tend to think of, nuclear facilities, kind of that larger scale. We don't always think about the rural water treatment facility as being part of that critical infrastructure. So I think, local governments, now's your time. Team up with MSISAC, team up with Homeland Security if you are in the government space. And if you're in the private small business space, find a good security partner that's going to take you through the journey and start doing those fundamentals, to Evan's point.
Yeah. And I think, the government, you're seeing CMMC is coming out to replace DFARS, which was a little bit, we'll say, onerous on small businesses.
That's a cute word.
Yeah. But this isn't something new, right? This is something that's been around. This is something that, like the government has seen this coming. You've got nation states all over the place doing this. But this is, I think, probably one of the more publicized situation. So it is a good opportunity to take advantage and make some progress in getting some funding or support, to put a program in place.
Yeah. And back to the basics, it's shocking, but not shocking, the amount of folks that still don't have a complete inventory of assets. And Yet if you go to say they're a manufacturer, and I ask them how many widgets are in the warehouse, they can tell me exactly.
Mhm.
If I say, what's your stock out? When do you refill this? Right.
They don't.
But if I say, well, what's your vulnerability patching schedule, which I consider to be a corollary to stock out on inventory, right?
Yeah.
I'm about to have a risk that potentially could interrupt my business. I need to take proactive action. They don't wait until the bin's empty to reorder. They reorder when they get to that threshold.
Right.
And I would say, with patching vulnerabilities, especially the one that comes out today, super important to do that. And, proactive versus reactive. And Evan, referred to that. And I think that is in 2020, I have a strong confidence that users as a whole, the humans of the world, if you will, business owners, consumers, etc., I believe this is the year that if we do this right, we will actually start to shift the awareness towards a proactive. I've had a lot more people start reaching out to me about, hey, what can I do? Yeah. Is there anything I can do to limit my risk at home? Is there, I had a gentleman contact me about a firewall, and, this guy has a little bit of money and not a lot of sense. And he went on the internet and got some big old fancy firewall and says, well, if I put this in my house, will it keep the hackers out? And it's like, no, actually, if you put that in your house, you're going to have more problems because you don't know how to use that tool. But I think this is the year for that awareness. And proactive, and to all the listeners out there, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media. If you've got questions, we've got answers. If we don't have answers, we know the people who do. And I know I can speak on behalf of all three of us. We have a zeal for helping all of you get better at this. It doesn't have to be your specialty. It's ours. But, let us help you. Reach out, ask questions, engage us in the conversation. We're going to be working really hard this year to bring simpler and easier to consume solutions to market, because we really do want to help everyone get ahead.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, one of the things I think for some of us in our industry is we're not very approachable, or at least we come off that we're not very approachable. It's been kind of cool down here in Cancun where, I've been asked by at least a dozen people that don't know nothing really about information security, what my thoughts were on, the whole Iran conflict and what it means for them personally. And these are great conversations, and it raises the level of awareness, understanding that the world's a very dangerous place. And when I connect things up to the internet, I'm inviting the world into whatever it is I'm connecting. There's just so much opportunity, and being proactive doesn't mean, like you said, Ryan, you don't have to be an expert, right? You see the same thing apply whether the threat is from Iran or China or the Ukraine or, some criminal organization, or whether the threat is from a regulator, right? Those fundamentals, if you invest the time and energy, it doesn't cost you a lot of money. If you invest the time and energy on the fundamentals, you'll be in a better spot for all of that.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. We've seen companies that spend a lot of money on, technology with whatever the latest buzzword is, and they're not secure, right? They don't understand where it should be going, what they have in place. Hey, what's your external IP range? We don't know, right? It doesn't matter if you throw money at the problem. If you don't know you can't protect what you don't know you have.
I completely agree. And I would say, I've seen a trend of trying to solve a non-technical problem with technical solutions. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, security, the way I like to pronounce it is safety, is a not technical activity, right? There are technical things we do to help us with it. We think in the physical world, stoplights and door locks, and, there are, security cameras, police cars, right? We do these things for safety. But I think organizations that, you could have the biggest IT security budget in the world and not actually change your security posture by much.
I would argue you actually get worse because it's that false sense of security.
I would agree.
Right?
Absolutely.
You quit looking, you trust the technology.
I remember once somebody said to me, well, we spent, $100,000 on that appliance, so we're secure now, right? And it's like, no. And I would actually argue that you can get a better security posture by investing in your humans, by investing in awareness training that works, not just the boring nonsense, and making it an inclusive culture of safety and security. You'll spend a lot less money and you'll actually increase your security posture significantly more.
Yeah. Yeah. We said all the time, you have a good security training program when you get more reports of suspicious, events.
Yeah. What's the old adage? Why should we give you a budget this year to the security team? We haven't had any events. What are you guys doing over there?
Right. Do you want to keep it that way or?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. And for those of you that are listening out there, fund your teams. It's important. And if you're not seeing stuff, it's either because you're not looking hard enough or you've got some people behind the curtain that are working really, really hard to keep you safe.
Yeah. Evan, anything to?
So would you guys say, in your opinion, due to the recent events with Iran and the United States, would you say that there's a more significant threat or a more significant risk to small to medium-sized businesses than there was, say a month ago?
I'd say there's a higher likelihood of occurrence. I think the risk is the same. The tools are what they are. The attack vectors and patterns are what they are. But I think now there's a higher likelihood of a small, medium business being attacked. And if for nothing more than to capitalize on the hyperbole to cause disruption. It's the ethos of terror, right? It isn't necessarily about mass casualties. It's about, can I cause mass disruption? So I think there is a higher likelihood.
Yeah. And it may not even be nation states. It's bad actors taking advantage of the situation.
Yes.
And then hiding under that cover of.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see a few instances in the next coming months where when the story's initially reported, it's going to sound a lot like it happened from Iran because they were using Iranian IP space.
Right. They would put markers that maybe they were easy to find.
Exactly. And then, after the investigation concludes, we're going to find out that, actually that was, anonymous, or that was, some other shadow brokers or somebody else, right. Doing it. I do think we're going to see more of that, where the attacks are masked as being part of this conflict when they're not necessarily directly related.
Yeah, because when you think about it, I mean, when you talk about, going toe to toe with your adversary, say United States versus Iran, and take the rest of the countries and things out of the equation, just to simplify, Iran going toe to toe with the United States would end up resulting in their destruction. So it seems as though there's more prevalence for, sort of nuisance attacks, or maybe, compromise and then dwell and pivot, those types of attacks where it's not a direct, maybe disruption. So I would be, another concern I might have as a small business is, are they in my network? Do I know? One, you guys already hit on it. Do I even know what my network is? And then, are they here? And maybe using me as a proxy into another place. So, those are things that I sort of think about, because I don't think Iran's going to go toe to toe. What they're going to do is, be sneaky, be stealthy, come around, the back end rather than going directly at, U.S. government facilities.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think, that's, and I think that trend's going to continue, right? I don't feel like the cyber war of 2020 to 2021 is going to be as overt as it's been in the past. I think it's going to be more covert. I think it's going to be, more third, fourth, fifth hand attacker on behalf of some larger organization. And to your point, Evan, I think it is going to be those nuisance attacks. It's going to be a lot of persistence. I expect in 2020 a lot of folks to set up persistence for something larger and more coordinated at a later date.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think you'll see like the big DDoS attacks or anything like that, but you're going to start seeing, how long have they been in? We don't know. Our logs go back 30 days.
Right.
So I think you'll see exactly more stealth and more just monitor watching. And Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think,
and sort of reminds me of the Cold War, where the U.S. and Russia, we both had nukes, right? And so knowing that would result in mutual destruction, there's this sort of standoff. And that's one of the things I'm more concerned about with like China and Russia, and Iran kind of being part of that. I don't know, maybe conspiracy theory, but it's those longer term sorts of things that I don't want to be a part of in terms of my own small business. I don't want to be used as collateral in those types of things.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think maybe the positive out of this is because it's getting so much publicity and play is you're going to get those smaller businesses or mid-sized businesses that didn't think about this now thinking about it. So hopefully we'll, get people into the conversation, and at least we got to do something. Start with an asset inventory, start with something, and at least be making positive steps forward.
Yeah. There's a saying I like, you can't protect what you can't see. And so I'm with you, Brad. I think, and Evan, right? Let's go back to the basics. I think it's on us as information security people to make it easier to do those basics. I think, we still hold our end users to an expectation that may at times be unreasonable given their experience level in the industry. Mm-hmm. Everybody's out there on the road driving a car. I expect very few of them to be mechanics. And I know some really, really smart people that if something happens with their car, they have zero clue what to do. Right? They're looking for the port for the blinker fluid because somebody said it takes blinker fluid. They're like, okay, sounds good to me. So I think, we as an industry can do better this year to make it cheaper, faster, and easier, right? Let's leverage that automation. Let's use the attack tools that we have for doing discovery, and let's convert them into inventory tools. Mm-hmm. So that's my challenge to anybody listening out there that likes to code. Make a free inventory and asset scanner that's simple and easy to use. Publish that thing and send us the link.
Right. Yeah. And whatever you do, I have one more kind of comment before I have to, cut loose and let you guys finish the show. But whatever you do, don't let fear paralyze you into not doing anything, and don't let it lead you to making poor decisions. So, the next time a sales guy calls and has some super cool widget thing that he wants to sell you because of this Iranian attack stuff, go back to the basics, right? Ask yourself, do I have an inventory? Do I have access control kind of figured out, my user accounts, my vulnerability management? Do I have those fundamentals kind of figured out? Because if I don't, the stuff that you're going to go out there and buy, you're going to piss away money, and you're just putting lipstick on a pig. So I'll leave you with that, guys.
Nope. It's great parting words, Evan. Thank you.
Well, enjoy Cancun, sir. Yeah. Have a great rest of the day. Looking forward to seeing you next week.
All right. So, I think really good conversation. We've had, what can we do? Focus on home, patch your stuff at home, understand what IoT you have, right? There is that around DDoS and some of those botnet type of things. Again, we don't expect to see that, but why open yourself up to it? At work, asset management. What do I have? Identity management. Do I have user accounts out there that have never been cleaned up and are still active? Those are just additional exposure points.
Well, and I'll pick on local admin because I see that one a lot.
Yeah.
If you have local admin in your environment, I forget the stat, is it 70 or 80% more likely to be at risk for an event?
Yeah.
So simply by removing local admin. Now, there's a bigger conversation about culture, and I think this Iranian thing is a good opportunity to open up conversations to say, not to live in fear over, we're going to be attacked by Iran, but to go, hey, look, this is happening now. We've seen a pattern leading up to this. Mm-hmm. We fully expect this to continue, right? Whether it's Russia, China, North Korea, the next whatever hacker group that comes out of thin air, the problem's not going away. So what can we do to start to take those proactive measures to start to do those things? And And in the home space, to your point, think long and hard before you put something smart, because most smart devices are security dumb.
Right.
So think long and hard before you put them in your house. Some of them you can't secure. Some of them, the security is so weak that you can't secure them.
Or they have no, I love how they rush something out with no patch feature.
We've got the news coming up, and we'll get into that a little bit, but there's been some interesting things that have unfolded in the last week or two with regards to smart devices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, focus on what we can do. What are we able to do? Master the fundamentals. We know that these attacks are out there, right? This isn't something that, oh my gosh, this is something new. This is something that's been going on. Use this as an opportunity to make a positive out of it and start that discussion. Hey, we need to figure out what we have, what's on our network, where these accounts come from.
Well, and if anybody out there is listening and you're like, okay, I want to do this, but I don't know where to start, or I don't know what to do, reach out. Yeah. Reach out to partners. I'm going to do a shameless plug. Reach out to us, but reach out to somebody. If you don't know how to do it, pick up the phone, make some calls, go on to LinkedIn, go on to Twitter, see what's going on. The InfoSec community is a really passionate and helpful group of folks. I've never met a group of people more willing to help chip away at the problem, willing to share what they know, than this group. And so, if you don't know what to do, reach out, find somebody that can help get you started. If you're getting started and you're looking to move to that next level, but you're not sure how best to structure your spend or things like that, again, reach out and ask. Work with a partner that understands you. Oh, looks like we got all kinds of fun stuff going on there.
So and with that, I think to go back to your point on the security community wanting to help. I think when you come in and say, I want to learn, help me do this, you're going to get a really good response. If you come in, I would say maybe not quite so open to help, as opposed to, I don't want to say arrogant or whatever, but if you come into it with an open attitude of, hey, I want help doing this, I want to learn, there's going to be a ton of people that are going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do reach out and you find that this security professional you're interacting with is I have to keep our rating, so I can't say that word, but
full of themselves.
That's a good way to describe it. Go find another one.
There's a lot of good people out there.
There's great people out there. If you want some recommendations, reach out to us. We're happy to help you, but we're also happy to point you to others. We're all very good at what we do, but each one of us has a unique skill set that's a little sharper than the next, which is why we make a great complementary team.
You can't know everything.
No way, no how.
And by the way, if somebody tells you they know everything,
walk that person out of the room.
Go find someone else. So, I think great discussion. I think this will be interesting to kind of see how this plays out and what this does. And again, I'm hoping that people can make this into a positive and use this as a discussion and way to start the conversation and moving programs forward. So, all right, we'll do some news here. First one is off of hothardware.com. Microsoft accused of sharing Skype Cortana audio with little vetting of Chinese contractors and no security. So that's not good. In the article there, it's saying that Microsoft allowed Chinese contractors access to Cortana and Skype audio for years with no security measures in place. This contractor that reported it says he reviewed thousands of potentially sensitive recordings on his laptop from his home in Beijing over the 2 years he worked for Microsoft. Yeah.
Well, so, I think this is the first, It's not the first, but it's one of many stories you're going to hear over the coming next year to 2 years. I'm not surprised by this. I'm not shocked by this in any way, shape, or form. What I find surprising is it took this long for the story to come out.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening all over the world with all types of different organizations. Microsoft just being the latest to get caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Security costs money. It's always cheaper and easier, hence the offshore resources to begin with, to not put those security controls in place and cross your fingers and hope you don't get caught. We've heard about this with what Facebook was doing with some of their content moderators in the Philippines.
Right.
What was the security around that?
Yeah.
Right. We heard about Amazon and some of the things that they've been up to with the Alexa recording. So unfortunately, I think this is just a continuation of a trend.
Yeah, I think, and this will be interesting to see how this plays out, especially with GDPR and the California Protection Act. And yeah,
well, right.
Yeah,
I think
this could be big.
Well, and I think a little bit later on we'll touch on a few other news stories, but we're already seeing some traction. I read an article, I think this was about last week, where the parents of the little girl that had her Ring camera hacked in her bedroom, and that news story was kind of going viral. They've actually filed a class action lawsuit now.
Well, is that the one? Well, yeah. And I think that comes back to, because there was one where they filed the suit, but like they had never changed the default passwords and all that. Well, now that's a tough call because.
Well, in a previous episode, I had mentioned that we're starting to see a trend of circuit court judges ruling that basic security hygiene and practices is common law. And that employers, in this instance, the employer had a common law obligation to take additional steps and measures to protect the employee's data, and that it was not considered reasonable nor arguable in 2019 that those measures had not been taken. So I think you're going to see that trend increase. I know I've seen a few lawsuits now suing for the lack of basic fundamental security controls.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think from that manufacturer provider, you don't allow them to keep the default. Force that to change, right? Simple things.
Yeah. And that's the intersection of the consumer experience. I know that some manufacturers are hesitant to make the security process more rigorous because there's a perception that the end user doesn't see the value and therefore doesn't want to participate in the experience. But I'm going to argue that and say that one of the largest phone makers in the world right now is using privacy as a spearhead of marketing. So
I would say that, yeah, people want it. You can't make it difficult or painful, but at the same time, I think people want some control.
Oh yeah. And I think that'll increase. It'll be interesting to see, how it goes. And we're going to have to start doing a few other things differently. I had a great experience here this weekend. My father got his first smartphone. And with that came a new set of rules on how to use it because, the old flip phone that he picked up circa 1990 something, with no internet connection and I'm sure you could compromise it, but you'd have to probably take it out of his pocket first.
Right.
And so I had to kind of walk him through and say, there are suspicious links. You need to, be careful about those text messages. Mm-hmm. He sent his first text ever and it was clearly done with talk to text and I can't repeat it on the air. So
that's funny.
But I think it's important to work with, we as InfoSec folk need to work with our humans to equip them to work with their humans.
Yeah.
And kind of pass that knowledge down, if you will.
That's a good way to put it. All right. Second story is from gbhackers.com. Top 7 cybersecurity tips for college students to protect from hackers. I think this was actually pretty good advice. High level, start out on the right foot with fresh credentials. Limit your exposure to college library. Protect your identity at school. Create email and social media just for school. Backups of your data. Protect your devices from your roommates, and consider a VPN. I mean, really simple, easy things you can do that will definitely make a difference. And I think, from my standpoint, you're starting college. You're now an adult, right? That's kind of the first big step into adulthood is out of there. So yeah, start smart.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I didn't see that I think would be a good add-on, not just create email and social media accounts just for school. Be mindful of your social media use in general. Be thoughtful about what you're sharing, how and when. A lot of folks are giving up way more information than they realize in the backgrounds of their photos.
Right.
Have the consent. One thing that a lot of folks are learning now as they go to college is about consent. And that's in traditionally and now in the dating context or the romantic context. But make sure you have consent before you share people's information. Being at a college, you could be around European citizens, and there are different rules about how their data is handled and managed. You could be around, folks of different cultures that may or may not have certain, religious beliefs about how photographs and other things are handled. So, I think these are all really great tips. One that I didn't see is make sure that you have a trusted recovery account. So when you do set up those new fresh credentials, make sure that you have a recovery account that goes to someone you trust, or your primary email. And for God's sakes, please stop using the account that you were issued in grade school.
Yeah. And enable multi-factor on everything.
So it might seem inconvenient at first, but it'll save you.
Yeah, you get used to it. All right. Last article or story we're going to talk about is Amazon Ring fired staff for snooping on customer security videos. It is on 2 links there, grahamcluley.com and vice.com. Yeah. Again, it's interesting. They only came out and admitted it once the U.S., they had that letter from senators questioning them. I don't know if they would have ever admitted this if they hadn't been kind of pushed by the government.
Well, and I'll say to this what I said earlier. I think this is the start of a trend. I think in 2020, this story is going to become commonplace. You're going to hear about how this happened at Snapchat. You're going to hear about how this happens at Instagram. You're going to hear about, Facebook. The content moderators have access to everything. And I don't think people realize that there are actual human beings that are doing the quality control and content moderation. When we look at what happened with Amazon, this was, a couple months ago now, there was a story that came out that said that Alexa and Siri were listening to you at the doctor's office and in your bedroom having intimate time and et cetera, et cetera. And the reality behind that story is that quality control agents were listening to the recordings to do the voice mappings to make sure that, things like accent and poor enunciation didn't affect the overall quality of the user experience. And, when we have the Snapchats and the Facebooks and Instagrams and et cetera of the world, in those instances on those platforms, there's content moderators who are reviewing that very personal and intimate content to make sure it doesn't violate terms of service. So, we need to be very thoughtful about where we're putting these devices and how we're sharing this, because I think this is just one of many, many instances And to your point, Brad, it was that letter from the senators that kind of motivated them for disclosure. But I'm just not going to be shocked when 2-3 podcasts from now we're talking about this again, but it's a different company name.
And one of the things that always makes me wonder is, like, you see the commercials on TV with "Hey Siri" or "Hey Alexa." Is that triggering? I don't know. Is that triggering
So to that point, and I'll have to dig up an article for another podcast, but there are certain advertisements have inaudible audio embedded in them, and my iPad will wake up to certain commercials. Right? It's a trend that we've noticed, and we know that can be done. We know that there are YouTube videos out there that have embedded commands in them. That leverage those smart speakers and can get them to, if you don't have it set up for a 2-step authorization, you can actually, using inaudible audio, trigger Siri or Google or Alexa to download malware, because you basically feed them the URL and tell them to go download it. So, I just don't like that trend. I don't have any in my house. Well, and it's what it is for the folks out there that don't know. This is a new school tactic for an old school marketing tactic. So marketing has been using subliminal messaging and techniques for decades and decades. The one that's probably most commonly known is the popcorn and soda at the movie theater, and how they embed certain imagery and audio into the movie to trigger you to want to get those snacks. Well, advertisers are now doing that for tracking purposes.
TVs are grabbing screen captures to see what you're watching.
Absolutely. Stuff, right. And so, because you hear this all the time. Well, I was sitting around talking about something, and then all of a sudden all the advertisements on Google turned into what I was just talking about. Well, I think there's some truth in that. I think there are some behind the scenes things happening that maybe aren't public yet.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Well, I think that will just about do it. Be careful out there. A lot of stuff we covered today. One last thing before we close the show out. If you or someone are looking for a job in information security, we'd love to hear from you and help out where we can. Email us at unsecurity@protonmail.com and we'll chat. Hopefully when Evan gets back, we'll get that whole thing rolling. And if you're the social type, socialize with us on Twitter. I'm at Brad and I. Ryan can be found at
Clotiersec, CLOUTIERSEC.
And Evan is in his usual spot at Evan Francine. That's it, and talk to you all again next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. We value our listeners and would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback by emailing us at unsecurity@protonmail.com. That's unsecurity@protonmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week to hear the latest insights from Brad and Evan.